What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome back to Atlas Theory. Now, I think one of the most important things for Dax and Star Atlas is storytelling. So today I brought on the guys over at Equinox. Great guild, love them. But we're going to get into lore, its importance, and also how they see these stories evolving over the next few years in Star Atlas and the metaverse. Let's get into the interview.
So hey guys, my name is Art. I'm the guild leader of Equinox Starfleet, also known as Equinox Guild. So just a bit of background about myself. So I'm actually from the healthcare industry. So before I went and did crypto full time, I was actually a surgical resident. But for years, so I've decided to, I guess, take a year off, to see what else there is. I've been in crypto since about 2020, but I've known about Bitcoin since 2013. In 2020, I sort of really went down the rabbit hole. I started with personal finance and then discovered Bitcoin again. And I read the Bitcoin Standard. And after that, it's sort of, I couldn't really go back to just doing stocks. I've been gaming for my entire life, basically. Arb and I, we've been playing games together since we were kids. And we also used to play with, like, when we were really young, we used to play with like toys and stuff, and I guess like role play with like Transformers and stuff. So I guess it's sort of a continuation of that. Yeah. So back in the day, I was also really into space sims. So Star Citizen, I'm sure you've heard of that. I was really into that, and I spent a lot of time on their Reddit trying to theory craft and speculate on the ships, and also trying to like speculate on the prices as well. And that's actually how I discovered Star Atlas. In my mind, I was like, if there's a game just like this, except on the blockchain, that's gonna be so big. So yeah, so this year I decided to go full time with the guild, with Equinox, with Paul, and Arb is sort of doing the lore for us. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, should I go on? My name is Ishiki Paul. I'm the vice guild lead of Equinox Guild. It's been an exciting road, really. What can I start with? I'm a dad. Recently, my son came into the world. He's a toddler. He's a 1-year-old. It's been a lot of work, doing many things at the same time. I come from a corporate world, so I used to be in management roles in Amazon. I led some teams there and moved countries multiple times. So I'm an expat myself. I live in Prague, Europe, but I'm German. I was raised in Germany, so I've been here for a while. And yeah, switching from the corporate world, I just honestly found myself doing crypto sort of on the side, trading, looking at charts. And recently in January last year, I really became active in crypto. But I started way back in 2018. I started buying Bitcoin back at the bull run. I started, of course, like everyone does, they start at the bull run, right? And it went down, I remember, all the way to 7K, and I kept dollar cost averaging. And I held on for a long time, 5 years. I didn't take anything out. I hold old diamond hands. And yeah, when I moved back to Prague here, because I was back to Germany for a year, I just found that I spent so much time on crypto now that maybe, I can try going full time. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. Thankfully, we still had a bull run. So that helped out, of course. But yeah, now I'm full-time crypto and doing this with ARC together with the guild, and super excited. Yeah.
Wonderful.
In terms of gaming, I spent most of my youth playing Ragnarok Online, years and years into that game. It's maybe not the most known, but it's at the same time as World of Warcraft. I know Ark played it himself.
Yeah,
And
I was huge
yeah,
into it.
spent years on that, and I can't wait for like a really, really good MMO to come out in the play to earn space. That'll be really exciting.
Hi, I'm Arbitrager slash Daryl. I'm the lore master for Equinox Starfleet. And yeah, I come from a corporate background, currently still the corporate background. So a variety of roles at Deloitte and Uber and fintech roles. but my involvement as the lore master comes from my background in a lot of role play organizations and video game role play organizations. So I used to be a guild master for a lore play guild on Guild Wars 2.
Awesome.
And yeah, and when Ark actually introduced me to the idea of blockchain gaming, I was like, oh, well, that really solves the main problem with role play, doesn't it? Because the main problem with role play is it's really reliant on trust. To act out the consequence of a storyline, you need to actually, trust that all parties are engaging and are playing dead, right? But Star Atlas in particular, and a variety of blockchain projects actually let you consequentialize, I suppose, the outcomes of a narrative. Really, that's kind of been the gap in a lot of sandbox environments, from MMORPGs to even things like Second Life, has been that lack of consequentialism to the narrative. But I guess what I'm really excited about with projects like Star Atlas is the ability to add your own narrative layer within the confines of a wider lore, and actually connect the two.
Very good. No, I love it. And I know that you guys, we've talked before, just kind of like of the importance of lore. And I know that, we've talked to others like Don Kane, and I feel like, us few were kind of one of the first ones kind of putting lore out there, or at least talking like how important it's going to be, to build up these DACs or guilds. So let's talk about, Star Atlas and kind of maybe why it's so important that we start introducing our stories into our DACs as we build.
So I think I can take us back a bit to how we started with the lore, because right before we started the guild, there was, at least for myself, I was really big into NFTs, and Solana NFTs just started out. One of the NFTs that started out was the Galactic Space Gecko Garage. Shout out to the community. And other projects such as the Goblin Lab, right? And they were huge on lore. Their project was, well, they had art too, and the art is beautiful, don't get me wrong. But what was different about them was they were the first projects that really introduced lore with their NFTs. And I saw how that captured the community. And every time there was a lore drop, everyone would go wild and be like, spread the lore, and Twitter was all over the place. And that got me really excited. And I was of the opinion that lore would be, and storytelling in NFTs is a huge market that no one really has identified yet, right? So, and with us starting the guild, I thought, probably we can combine this, and that's, we started throwing ideas together as a group, and yeah, it evolved, and now we have lore that is, choose your own destiny. It's interactive, and we're a role-playing guild, and yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
Awesome.
And just to add on to that, so basically, from a practical point of view, we also wanted to sort of keep the engagement going, right? Because obviously Star Atlas is still in development, and we might be waiting for another 3 to 4 years for the game to come out, and we want to sort of provide lore to the community so that they sort of feel like they're a part of this ongoing story, and they can be part of this universe. So we also had this idea that because we're a DAC, right, and so obviously it's going to be voting, and the community gets to choose the destiny of our guild. We want to sort of tie in the lore to every decision that we make. That can be from naming our ship to something like our next big purchase of a ship, for example. And with lore, we can sort of make that a bit more fun, and people can get more involved in it. Just get people together, I guess.
I love that. Yeah, I love whenever you guys post, on Twitter, like, hey, come in, help us out, let's name this ship. I was like, oh, that's such good engagement. I love it. and yeah, you just mentioned like one of my main points with lore, which is, like, as you said, the waiting period. Like, we're not going to be able to do a majority of these careers that is talked about, in the White Star Atlas papers, so it's just storytelling. It's like community building. It's, you know, all of that. So super exciting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to combine it, right? We also had this idea to do guild quests eventually, because really what we're thinking is if we're going to be a Star Atlas guild, and we might need to wait 5 years for this vision to realize, right? What can we do until then? So one of the ways that we can include the lore is to have our own quests within Discord, you know, just using the lore and involve the community that way.
Mm,
You
very
know,
cool.
Michael Wagner always says, you know, the game has already started, and so we want to get on top of that and start with our own lore. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, speaking of your own lore, then I'll pass it to the lore master here. How does one, let's say I'm new, I want to start my own DAC, or just start writing some like lore for Star Atlas, you know, in my own time. Where do you kind of start with all this? Like, is it like thinking up a character or a storyline or the world at large? Like, where would you kind of enter this whole thing?
Yeah, I guess I can talk a little about how we approached it first.
Mm.
And you know, to borrow a medical adage, first do no harm. Uh, so you know, given that the game is still in development and all this, and the main canon, I should say, is still being dropped. One of the main things you want to ensure in creating your own lore is canon compatibility. Those in the role play community always know that, you know, when you create, you know, too big of an impact that would have an impact on like the main characters of a game or like the main history of the game, you really can break things as things move forward, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you want to do is you want to kind of set boundaries to yourself, really define the box you don't want to cross. And we started with, there's a bunch of internal documents we have that are sort of like Wikipedia entries written in universe, like, oh, here we are, the Equinox Starfleet, and this is an organization within this region of space and so on. But we write it in such a way that ensures, should further main lore drops come in from the Star Atlas team, that we're not conflicting with it and that it aligns and fits within that narrative. So, you know, we were really happy, you know, in our last lore drop, we referenced things like the Great Peace and like, you know, the rise of like trans faction crime and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of happy to see that, you know, some of the future main lore drops actually hinted at that as well. So we felt, you know, a sigh of relief. Oh, it fits within that. We don't need to retcon any of our own things. That's probably like the main thing you always want to start with. And then after that, you can think about how you get utility out of it. So we heard from Ark and Ishiki about how, you know, we wanted to accompany choose your own adventure aspects for the guild engagement, but also for like actual in-game activities like ship transactions and so on. So, you know, we asked ourselves what kind of lore or canon would add a rich narrative over those activities. And of course, this idea of, you know, Equinox Starfleet in lore is kind of like a Star Trekian sort of pan-military, pan-political organization that sort of explains a lot of those activities in a nice and neat way. And so we leaned towards that.
Awesome. Now, for the viewers, can you give us maybe a little hint on your lore, or maybe your favorite
Yeah.
aspect of it?
Yeah, sure. I guess, you know, what I love about our lore is, you know, it's a very sort of flawed but admirable sort of faction. I guess that's kind of what Equinox Starfleet is, or the Federation is within the in universe, so to speak. It was formed by a libertarian colony ship that basically took a section of space for themselves within the Mud faction. Because of that origin of this sort of libertarian rejection of centralized control kind of motivation, you can play with a lot of really interesting sub factions within within Equinox, I guess. So we've got, you know, these super left-leaning greenies who, you know, want to colonize everything and basically want to do kumbaya with all the alien factions. Then we've got like these hardline militarists who just want to, like, you know, mud is everything, I hate the Great Peace and all that. And you know, you can really form some really interesting kind of stereotypes and characters that are kind of humorous almost if you kind of read between the lines. So you know, I guess my favorite bit was in our last lore drop, actually, where we bought the tree arrow, which is a bomber, but it's also like a colonizing ship as well. So there's a faction within our lore, or, you know, within the universe, that are, you know, super environmental, the greens, that's what we call them. And they usually don't get anything passed, but because the military faction and the kind of pro-peace faction were so at odds, here came the Greens, said, look, it's a bomber, but it can grow things. And everyone was like, ah, you know what? We'll do that. We'll do that. It ticks all our boxes. So I just thought that was really funny how,
That's
you know,
amazing.
that kind of panned out really well.
Very cool. Oh man. The tree arrow is so sick. I love that. I think that's like probably my favorite ship.
Oh, it's
I was just
100% my
gonna say,
favorite.
yeah. And it's just so funny, and it's just, there's so much you can work with on the lore there.
Exactly. Now I want to pass it to each of you now, kind of like, we're at the beginning stages, of course. You know, we could go, you know, into NFTs, you know, connecting lore to those, but like, let's play it out here. Or I want to get some of your thoughts on like, how does lore evolve over the next few years? And like, what are some of its applications that you like foresee?
Yeah, we did talk about this actually. We did originally plan on sort of having airdrops related to our lore. So for example, let's say we run a quest, let's say, to our lore, and that goes on for, let's say, 3 months, and that can be called a season, right? And the people who've participated in that, the original idea is that, you know, they will get some sort of medal or reward to show that they've been a participant in the lore itself. And that can somehow have some sort of reward when the game comes out, or in our own ecosystem or something like that, or even if it's just a trophy. So that was the original idea. I think we need to have to look into that again, because we haven't really talked about it in a while, especially with the whole you know, IP stuff around NFTs. We just want to make sure that it's, you know, compliant, I guess, with the legalities of everything. I think the NFT space is so so new that there's a lot of questions that we need to have answered first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for now it's really to have continuity and then to see where we can take this, right? Definitely one of the goals should be to keep it as interactive as possible, or increase interactivity, right? And that can go, you know, long term. It could be a game maybe within Star Atlas, or built on top of Star Atlas, right? Quests that we build ourselves. But those are just ideas at this point.
Yeah, for me, I think not necessarily with NFT, like the future of NFT and gaming specifically, but like, you know, what problems would it solve? The big one I see is role playing. You know, role playing, if you really think about it, is kind of the earliest maturity of like decentralized gaming development, at least on kind of the narrative side, if you think of it that way. And the problem's always been like this consequence thing, right? There's been a disconnect because you can't make the game assets reflect the narrative. So I think, especially even before a launch, you can sort of start seeing characters and certain ships, you know, consequentialized by self-developed narratives from people like us, but others, you know, out there in the ecosystem. You know, when we role play, I don't know, a ship getting stolen, you can't really do that, you know, for like nothing actually happens in when we role play that in, like, I don't know, Star Trek Online, right? But here you can actually make it happen. It's actualized in the inventory and all those sort of things. And the battles are, you know, actualized. So I think having that consequence, you know, it's kind of like not just choose your own adventure, but it's like choose your own campaign, choose your own DLC at that point. You kind of supplant or, you know, add to the main narrative that the game developers add. Effectively, the decentralized goal, I think a lot of these projects hope to achieve.
Awesome.
I think something, oh, sorry.
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
Something interesting to think about is that, you know, for the first time ever, we can actually create a character that can be where its ownership can be transferred, right? So let's say if we create a character within Equinox Starfleet that becomes a main character in our lore, potentially in the future it might suffer quite a lot of money just because of its history, and that with the blockchain you can actually make that character exist on the blockchain for real, as opposed to just someone's account or something like that. That in typical games you can't really sell, right?
Right. No, I think you just touched on something I was going to go into, which is like, we could be creating, any one of us could be creating like a new, Mickey Mouse or, Lion King, Cinderella, whatever. But they exist where like whole communities could build technically DAOs around them. So like as they're used, in different stories and different forms of media, like the possibilities with the blockchain are like endless with lore and IP, and it's really exciting times, like just to think about that we may be at the beginning, of something like that is really, really cool.
Yeah, and something also interesting to think about is even the ships themselves, right? They have their own identity, right? So for example, the tree arrow that we own is the Equinox Starfleet tree arrow, and with blockchain you can actually trace the history of ownership, and if maybe some people pay extra for that history, right? That'd be something really cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you can really make it your own, right? In the future, we should be able to have our own skins in the game as well. We have our RAM shop already from Osaka in our guild, so we're setting things up.
Nice.
We're gonna make it our own, and yeah, each ship will have different modules, right? And you can swap them around. So definitely, there's gonna be individual value to each of those ships long term, at least for the ships like the Tree Arrow.
Well, awesome, guys. It's been great having you on. Can we get maybe a time where the next lore drop might happen?
Yeah, we're aiming for the 6th of February, this weekend, and you'll hear a little more about what's going on with our Tree Arrow, and some other things with our factions.
Very, very cool. And for those of you watching, how can they find you?
Yeah, so 2 places. So we normally release our lore on Twitter and on our Discord channel as well. So if you guys want to head on to our Twitter channel, where you can find a link to our Discord as well, where you can actually vote on the direction of our lore. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, all those links will be down in the description, so go check them out. Guys, it's been awesome to have you on. Thank you again for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks
Yeah.
for inviting us.
Aaron.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Have a good one in Norway.
Have a good one.
See you, man.
See ya.
Bye-bye. See you in the
Bye.
metaverse.
Yep, see you there. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the interview with Equinox. Great guys. Love the conversation. If you guys have any questions for maybe a part 2 of a discussion, let me know. We'll get them going. But if you enjoyed, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if this is your first time here. I'll see you guys later. Peace.